Welcome to Preparing for Quantum Shift, Strategy, Alignment, and Digital Trust. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jen Sweet, and I'll be assisting with today's webinar. We hope you get a lot of value out of this session and enjoy the content, whether you're watching this live or demand. Today's host is Nilufer Erdebil, who is the founder and CEO of Spring2 Innovation. She is also a TEDx Ottawa speaker and the author of the international best-selling book, Future Proofing by Design. She has dedicated her career to helping organizations achieve remarkable achievements through design thinking principles. And joining Nilufer today, we have a great guest speaker, which we're welcoming back once again, Bruno Couillard. Bruno is the CEO and co-founder of Crypto4A Technologies, Inc., leading innovation, crypto agile, and post-quantum cybersecurity. With over 35 years of experience in cryptography, key management, and quantum safe technologies, he has designed and implemented advanced cybersecurity systems for both commercial and military use. Previously, he co-founded Chrysalids ITS and served as the CTO developing of Luna Hardware Security. Earlier, he worked with the Government of Canada as a cryptographic evaluator and security architect and the Canadian Cryptographic Modernization Program. With that, I am happy to pass it over to Nilufer and Bruno.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you, Bruno, for coming on board. That's a lot of qualifications. And so we're really thankful to have your expertise today to run us through a little bit more about crypto, because we actually had a great conversation back in November, and there was so much more we didn't discuss that back by popular demand, we've asked you to come back and run through some more things. Before we start in, a couple of things. This is being recorded, and for those that have registered, we will actually send you the link to it in an email in the next couple of days. So don't worry if you feel like it's a lot of information, you can rewatch it later. And as you have started getting to know us a little bit more, we'd love to get to know you a little bit better as well too. So with that, Jen, would you mind putting up our poll to get to know everybody a little bit better? So the first poll, and the only poll, is how familiar are you with quantum technologies? Either just starting out, a beginner, intermediate, or expert. If you could fill that in, then that'll give us a better idea of how to respond to some of the questions. And so how familiar are you with quantum technologies? Give you guys about 10 more seconds to fill that out. Are you just starting out? Are you a beginner, intermediate, or expert? And so it looks like it's a bit of a tie between just starting out and beginner. And so I'm going to share the results so everybody else can see. So 50% starting out, 47% beginner, and 3% intermediate. So thank you so much. That's going to help us out as we go through and have our discussions. And so I hope you don't mind, Bruno, that we do a quick recap of what we chatted about last time.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about how quantum's kind of in this environment where things are shifting quite a bit. And so we're going from a secure by default to vulnerable by design environment. And it's actually going to be, quantum is going to be mainstream within the next year or two, which surprised me and a lot of people in the audience. And we chatted a lot about how it's not just an IT issue, it's an enterprise-wide risk. And we also chatted about what the opportunities were from a technology perspective, and then a talent gap, and encouraging the younger generations to get more into this because there's going to be huge career opportunities in this area. And then we also chatted a little bit about what leaders need to do as they're thinking about cryptography. It's making the risks visible, starting the transition, building alignment internally, and then investing in capacity. Anything else you want to add about our first webinar that we did back in November?
Yes, and first of all, hi everyone. And Jen, I'm sorry about the list of acronyms you have to read. I could see that it gets confusing. Yes, actually, there is something that is actually interesting is since we had our last conversation, there were a bit of excitement a few weeks back when Google published new research that corroborated there were two more sets of independent researchers, researching team that came up with more impressive ideas how to make those quantum computers arrive sooner and be capable of the kinds of things we are worried about at the moment. So these events have caused Google to itself, they have, as you know, Google is a massive corporation. They have a research department that is attempting to build quantum computers, but there's also a side of Google that we use on a daily basis, we, all the audience here, that is there to secure our digital footprint, emails, conversations, research, searches, and so on. They have decided, based on the research that they had found, that they would actually make their digital systems be quantum ready by 2029. Initially, that date was 2020, 2030. They've decided to move it closer to 2029 because they feel that these events that this research material that they came up with causes them to now be a bit more worried and they want to be ready sooner than later. After Google did that or made that announcement, Cloudflare, which is another massive giant in the web sphere, also adopted the same dates. So this is fairly fresh since we've talked in November of more events or more pointers that indicate that the research around quantum computing continues to flourish. Material is being published. Ideas are coming up, and people from Team A get to be infected slash given great ideas that they can go off and do more things. So there's this relationship that is being carried across the globe between different research teams, so that any new advances typically published typically elevates the rest of the field at every single step. So you have this effect of in French we say entraînement. It's an effect of moving forward the whole field, and that's probably going to keep happening on a regular basis. So maybe in a few months from now, we might get back on a podcast where there might have been between today and the future event some more advances by maybe IBM or maybe other research team. So that's definitely, the field is moving fast and accelerating is the point here.
Okay, I like this. And so when you say event, that's new research that's taking place and new technological advances.
Yes. For example, in case of Google, the team that they do some research in areas of quantum technology. So the entire effort behind building quantum computers it's a multi-pronged, multifaceted sort of challenges that need to be solved. If you were to go back to, say, the time we were trying to build airplanes, you need to know about the wings. How do wings function? You need to figure how does rudders function? How does the propeller function? There's an engine that needs to go inverted. How does it continue working while it's inverted? There's a lot of different topics that need to all be solved in order to assemble a complex system. So in the case of an aircraft, you have potentially 10, 15 different seriously complicated things that you need to ultimately solve in order to have a plane that flies. It could be the tires, the pressure on the tires. So if you go too far up in the air, you don't want the tires to blow up, and on and on and on. Once you solve that, you basically have a working system and you can keep advancing it. It's the same thing with quantum computers. There's plethora of challenges that teams of different zoom in different areas, and they're trying to solve that specific issue here while another team is looking somewhere else. And it's a combination of all of these advances. So team A says, "Ha, I got a new trick. I've been able to improve this bit here by a factor of two," and someone else goes, "Oh, awesome! I can use that to also improve my thing." And this is the effect of all of these worldwide brains working on the same challenge are helping one another by advancing each in their own segments and silos. But the communication of that idea makes the field constantly move forward at more or less an exponential rate of advance. That's really the way any technological advances humanity has ever gone through. You can trace it back. You can look at microprocessors, exponential growth of speed, memory. You can look at storage facilities and so on. Always the same thing. So we're just being, we are currently in real time witnessing that growth of exponential acceleration on the building of the quantum computing capability that we've been talking about for years. It's happening faster, and it's becoming a much closer event than ever in the past, ever was in the past.
I love that analogy of the plane and different parts are equivalent to different parts of quantum. And you mentioned quantum computing. We're talking about quantum cryptography as well
Yeah.
too. And
Yes,
so there's a whole bunch of aspects of quantum that are being brought together, and an advancement in any one of them impacts the others. And so they're learning from
exactly.
one another and advancing it a lot faster. That's fantastic. Yeah.
I
And
think I think
yeah.
I think all of us in our day-to-day lives, sometimes we encounter some in our own lives, someone somewhere that we know does some changes the way they bake potatoes, or they do their barbecue, or they cut the grass, something that that person does that you go, huh, I never thought of that
Yeah.
approach. And you now pick up on that idea, but you may have yourself been thinking about a different approach. That new idea just now gave you a lift, and it helps you solve your problem. And it's the way the world advances all the time. We're constantly looking for tricks that we pick up from the surroundings. It just so happens that when you're in the tech, these tricks are being published very clearly. There's research papers, folks that are advancing these areas of our the human knowledge. They like to publish where they're at. And we all pick up on those ideas and we go, oh, I can use this and I can do this. And it's been happening for, I think, since humans have been humans. We've probably been improving on someone else's idea.
Yes.
I guarantee where we're at today would not happen in and of itself. It's a lineup of thousands of years of ideas that we benefit from, that we live in on top of today. And the same thing happens in quantum computing. Anyways, I'll stop here.
Love that. No, that's so fantastic. That's a great way of looking at it. As we're picking up on each other's knowledge and then adding to it, and it changes how we think about things and improves the environments that we're in. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and so my first question is maybe something that we covered a little bit of, but in the past webinar, but I'd love to talk about it a bit more today too. Is you spent decades working on cryptographic foundations for the internet. What are most leaders still not seeing about what's coming?
The great thing about what we have done and the sad thing about what we have done is that the invention of public key cryptography, that knowledge, that idea, which was published in 1977, which is almost we're getting close to a 50-year mark here. That idea, which was a math problem, someone went and said, if we use the math in this approach, I could do this trick here. And everybody went, oh, that's an interesting trick. But then time moved on. And then that trick kept on being, everybody was trying to, it almost feels like, when a baby has got a block that they need to fit somewhere, and you can see they understand that they need to somehow make it fit somewhere, but they're struggling. There's a struggle before it actually happened to work. We're no different. Even if we're humans, we're picking this idea, this trick, and we're going, what can I do with this? We've tried a lot of things. Eventually, around 1995, there was someone that had figured how to assemble a puzzle that we take for granted today. It's been working for the last 30 years. It's called the SSL, the TLS, which allows secure communication between you and I and the audience, between you and your bank, you and your Amazon, and on and on. That concept, once we unlocked it and figured how to use it, worked so well, and it was so transparent that we just took it for granted, and we started stacking on top of that idea hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of new ideas that came on top of it. So we lost track of the very foundation for 30 years. We didn't need to really think about the foundations. Everything worked. What's going on today is we have to go all the way down to the very foundation. Those first protocols, those first ideas we ultimately put into position that have served as the foundation of our digital trust. That's where we need to go today. So the journey and the vast majority of people that exist on this planet have no idea what was done 30 years ago. Sorry, I should probably suggest that I'm old enough to remember, but the new generation of engineers and scientists and computer programmers are not really taught these systems. They've been given a starting point that's much higher in terms of elevation of protocols and stacks, so they can go from there and move further up. That's how we advance. We typically start at one point, we teach a generation to move to the next one. The next generation takes it from here and moves up, and so on. Now we're having to go way back. It's a time machine, rewind the clock, go figure how we did it in the early days, and try and replace it while everything is still working. That's a trick. So that's the magic here. You've got a house, you've just been told your foundation are about to crumble. But before it does, I could lift the house, replace the foundation, and put your house back, and you could keep staying in the house while I'm doing it. Your house is going to continue being fine, but I've replaced the foundation and you're now secure. Well, that's a challenge. If you have a home, think of an entire city of buildings, and then think of an entire country, a continent, and the entire global planet that we live on. That's what we have to do across the globe. Everything needs to be lifted, replace the bottom, put it back while everything keeps running and working. It's not one of those easy peasy sort of challenge. It's a big one. It's any experts you talk to, when you bring up the quantum transition or a post-quantum transition, everybody goes, it's a scary thing. It's a big thing. It's a monstrous thing.
Yeah,
but we have to do it.
I
So
like that analogy again as well. And as you're talking, we got a few really good questions. The first one being is What questions do we need to be asking ourselves today in our current technology and innovation projects to make sure we're not caught unprepared for the arrival of quantum technologies?
I suggest that, so I'll give an answer that's, I'll try and be as broad as possible. If you're an operator of technology, but you don't design the technology, first thing you should do is go verify with your vendors, those that provide you the technology. Ask every single one of them to give you what is their roadmap. Where are they at with regards to being quantum ready themselves? Because those vendors should know. And if you get an answer that does not satisfy you, I would suggest that's a signal where you need to look at vendors that may give you an answer that at least answers a question in a similar kind of product or solution set. If you own some of these solutions, if you are part of an organization that has built, designed, and operated cryptographic capabilities, you design code that uses cryptographic capabilities, then what you need to look for is how exposed are you? And that may require you to go and search or get help from external parties and experts, but you may need to go look at your own foundations, at your own code, what you've been using in the past, the libraries, the protocols, and do what they call it's kind of the first step. Do a discovery process. Try and discover what is it that you use, what is it that you depend on, and that is critical. And if you happen to be a company like us, we're a vendor. We build actual machines and products that are designed to satisfy all of the quantum safe requirements and so on. We can answer, for example, if you're buying HSMs, hardware security modules, I'll be happy to answer your questions. That would be awesome. But if you're sitting in your office today and you're asking that question, I would suggest you try and quickly figure, are we in this office designing, building, fabricating, operating code that may need security, or are we always buying those services or products from third parties? And depending on where you fit, definitely check with your vendors or inspect your own home, I guess your own house, figure out what you've been using, do the inventory, do the discovery to try and assess how much damage or how much work you've got on your plate. That'd be my initial suggestion to you to help you with that.
Okay, I love that. The stuff that I really want to get into first is around sovereignty. And we've been hearing a lot about sovereignty in the news for the last little while. And so, from a cryptography standpoint, what does sovereignty actually mean in a digital world?
The ultimate implementation of how, maybe I'll simplify it this way.
Yeah.
Sovereignty is the ability to have some control. If you say you have sovereignty on your country, you should be able to control the access, the who's in, who's out, who can borrow things in there, and so on. So that's the concept of controlling this asset. When it comes to the digital world, typically we're thinking in terms of information. My pictures, my emails, my documents, my health records, my work, my tax returns, all of these things are informational data that someone should have control over. Usually, when we transmit, when we store, that data sits there in storage facilities, or it's on fiber optics, or it's being sent over phone lines and so on. You want to know that at any point in these different states, or the state of the info, it's either in transit being stored or being read. You want to know who is accessing it, how is it secured? Is it secured during a transit? Who will be able to read it? And it typically, for the last, as I said, 30 years, we have been using tricks that in the cyberspace, all of us have been building on the basis of, hey, we have cryptographic capabilities that help exactly secure the data when it's in transit, when it's stored. I can control access by validating your password or validating a private public key pair. So we've used cryptography throughout the digital land to help guarantee access control to data. Now, it's all based on cryptography. So if you control the cryptography, you control access and you control the data, who gets to see it. So ultimately, when you're asking sovereign data, you're asking about, you need to have sovereign control on your cryptography. Now, cryptography is a pretty, it's not the thing that we talk at parties. Most people don't care. It just happens to work. It does its job, and no one really feel that they need to dig in any further than that. But the interesting thing about cryptography is it's typically implemented in black box. So if I give you a black box and say, trust me, that thing is going to keep you safe, how do you believe that this is going to be the case? How strongly will you feel that you have full sovereignty of your data because I've given you a black box? The question that will likely come to your mind is, well, who are you? Why would I trust you? What else do you do in the black box? Can you see my keys? Is there a back door to the black box? And you go through these questions. And there's a good list of questions that you should ask yourself. And there's lots of that sovereignty of data that ultimately comes down to this list of questions. Who's selling you the black box? Can I trust them? Are they a reputable firm? Are they coming from a country that probably has left some back doors in the system? And that's when sovereignty hits the bare metal, the raw. This is where the concept of sovereignty really hits home. Who controls your cryptography and your key management? And I happen to be one of those guys that, yeah, I can guarantee that when I sell you a machine, it's yours, it's your keys. I can go with you through the code if you want to show you how everything works. And if you don't want to do that, there are third-party labs that have done that and have given a certificate that says, yes, they've done what they say they should do. So where I'm going with this is that ultimately sovereignty of data, when we talk about data sovereignty, it really quickly becomes a question of who secures the cryptographic operation and key management. And that's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. Our opinion has always been, you want to have control on your data, you definitely need control on your cryptography and your keys. You need to know that that material is actually secure against quantum computers. So that's another additional checkbox. And you should have full confidence in the vendor that sells you these boxes, that vendor is a reputable, has a good reputation, will not put backdoor or leave anything behind in this machine that would allow someone to go and poke at your data. So it's a complicated answer, but ultimately data sovereignty is strongly tied to that of cryptography, key management, and post-quantum security. And in today's world, that's just the reality of what we're attempting to do here. If you want to control your data, you want to know, where does it live when it's being opened? Who controls that environment? Who has access to the keys? Where are those machines installed? And on and on. So that is a very complicated question to your a complicated answer to your question. I know, I'm sorry, but data sovereignty is a variant or a different name, in my opinion, to cryptography and key management. So you need to know where your keys are. It's more or less the same as your home. You have your home, you'd like to know who goes in your home and who uses facilities in your home and so on. If you leave the key in a box outside the door and anyone on the street can crack open that box to walk into your home, you don't really have sovereignty on your home because you've delegated the sovereignty of your home to a set of keys that now you've opened to the world. So you need to control those keys just as much as you want to control who gets access to your home. And that's the same in the digital world, whether it's a ones and zero bits that we're talking about or your home and car, same concept. Whoever has a key can drive away with your car or walks into your home and enjoy the food in the fridge.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah. Are there, I guess, it sounds like organizations are underestimating how much their sovereignty depends on cryptography.
Yes, and for the vet, I think for a lot of folks, cryptography is a long word. It's it scares a lot of people. Uh, it is actually it's just a mathematical concept that when you think of it from a historical point of view, until 30 years ago, probably less than thousands of people understood cryptography, and they were probably wearing military uniforms because cryptography had always been assigned or associated to guarding military information. It goes back thousands of years. Even Caesar used cryptography to encrypt orders he would pass on to his generals. So it's been around for many years, but not to the vast majority of people. It's been very, very tightly controlled, and only a few have a need to know about cryptography. It's just since the internet has come to our lives that the world has opened up because of the digital economy that now all of us, are likely on a daily basis, all having a job that's somehow tied to the digital economy itself. The estimates now are that the digital economy represents somewhere close to 50% of the global economy. That's a lot of our jobs on this podcast that are depending on this world of ones and zero, that in 30 years, we've gone from nothing to half of the global economy. So cryptography, knowledge of cryptography, the expansion of the digital economy has gone so fast that the knowledge of cryptography has not been able to keep up with. We don't have the same knowledge built into our day-to-day lives. I'm sure that when first cars came on the scene, up until fairly recently, most people understood what is a carburetor, how do I change the oil in my car. We had a sense of this technology had evolved at the rate that we humans could keep up with. Only recently have cars become machines, like computers almost. But if you think of an advancing technology, expanding technology, if we can keep up with it, we're never going to be afraid of it. But if it goes so fast that we can't keep up, we become worried. We don't understand cryptography. We get a bit scared. So cryptography is one of those things that it exists. It's out there, but not many people uh, are familiar enough with it or comfortable enough with it to decide what to do with this capability. And for good reasons, if you don't do it right, and I'll be the first to suggest, don't do this at home. This is really, you're dealing with high precision math. You can't make this half-assed job. Sorry if I you cannot do this on a shoestring budget. You need to do it right or don't do it at all. You might as well don't do it at all or do it right, because if you're somewhere in between, you live on a false sense of security, which is even worse. Because you think you're secure, but you're absolutely not. So yeah, cryptography is not necessarily a field of human endeavors that have been super popular. We don't have any Netflix series on cryptographers.
Yeah, not
That
yet,
would,
not yet.
that would probably be boring.
Well, I think you brought up a really great point for questions that people need to ask themselves is are you going all in or not at all? And I think that's a huge part of what leaders need to think about is that they know it's coming and it's coming faster than we ever thought before. And so are you going to make a conscious decision to go all in or to actually just um, watch it go by? And there's no in
Yeah.
between.
And I think to a certain degree, I think cryptography is associated with the IT people, IT guys. And most of us think, yeah, I can buy my computer. I can set up my OS. I can probably deal with my web access. For the most part, that's true. And sometimes we think we understand cryptography, but we don't. And it's a big difference between there's a big difference between just buying a new computer and putting your OS and getting it to do what you want it to do. Most people can likely do that. Cryptography is not this thing at all. And we tend to make it live in the same bucket as IT, but it should have its own special branch or special um, conditions, or we should consider that to be its own unique thing. And it should be done carefully and properly by experts. Because if you are not an expert and you think you can manage it, some people can. I'm not trying to make everybody not able to do so, but very often someone thought they were doing the right thing, they did not, and you end up with a way worse situation because now you've been feeling for years potentially that you were secure, but you were wide open, and you've now allowed for all your data and your sensitive material to be dispersed around the world. And that's a critical thing. I mean, it's almost like if we think of sovereignty, if you want to control access to your country or to your home, well, you may have a nice secure door at the front, but if you leave the windows open in the bottom in the basement, or the patio door at the back is completely open, you've missed a few things. And that's sometimes the nasty thing about cryptography. If you're not an expert, you might find that you've done a couple of things really well, but you've lost or you have not taken care of another few things that you should have. And that's where you get the leaks or you get exposed, and you ultimately have caused yourself to think you were secure when you were absolutely not.
Yeah, I like that. One other thing I want to talk to you about is when you combine, we talked about a little bit about cryptography, quantum, sovereignty. What happens when you combine AI with quantum capabilities? What new types of threats and opportunities start to come forward?
So far, what seems to be emerging is AI is another phenomenal tool. It's a tool, it's almost like if you've ever met someone who was very good at, say, building homes, and that person might have had, really old tools, screwdrivers, a hammer, and a saw, and but that person was really good. You take that person, you give him phenomenal tools like hand tools, advanced skill saws, and so on. That same person is going to be way more productive because he's already an expert, he or she, and they will be able to use the tools because they understand what they need the tools to do. So AI is becoming a tool for those that understand what they're attempting to do in software development to enhance their powers, their prowess, their brain's capacity, because now they can think and allow the tool to do the less problematic things. So they can do, tool, go do this for me, and I'm going to go do something here that you will never be able to do for me. So they have that. It enhances the ability for some developers to become way, way better. At the same time, you have sometimes that developers, and I'll go back to my analogy of the person building house. If the person can't build a dug house for their, to save their own lives, even if you give them the best of tools, they may not be in the right business. And in the software sense, in the software world, the same thing happens sometimes. Writing software, sometimes you have people that are more on the low end of quality of their capability in terms of writing code. There's not a lot that will be improved by giving them AI capacity. So AI seems to be seems to come into a developers community and break or emphasize the difference in the abilities of the developers themselves. Some get even better, some get potentially worse. What that does is that now you have AI being used by many, many developers. Some of them are using it to improve their own products. We do that here for our own product development. We have some of our people using AI, and they are just way better. They were super smart, but now they're super, super smart. They have the ability to do much better coding, much more quality, much higher sturdiness or strength in the code. So the resistance of the design is much higher. But on the other side of the fence, you also have people using AI to improve the tools, the attack tools, I'll call them. And they have been using those, and they've done a lot of good, solid, they've found solid holes in many of the existing code that exists today. So you've seen that AI has now been modifying and elevating the field of software development. In that field, you also have people trying to advance quantum computing. So the AI tools are enhancing the ability of the quantum folks to themselves be faster at advancing quantum computing. To date, so far, and at least to my knowledge, I have not heard of the usage of a quantum computer to run an AI, enhancing AI sort of capabilities. There's been some attempts, but I have not heard anything super conclusive on that. So what I've seen is AI has been used in both camps, the cyber defense, the cyber attacks. Those two camps are using AI to try and improve the fortress or improve the armament to break the fortress. And you also have the AI folks that use AI to help advance and accelerate the development of quantum computers. That's the point of contact that I've seen so far. And I'm always trying to pay attention. I may have missed, there's so many things happening that I might have missed, that some great minds out there may have come up with some trick that their AI model will be better off using a quantum computer than general purpose GPU as an example.
Can you
So
run us through the nuance of what would running AI on a quantum computer do for the world and for that application?
I'm not enough of an expert, to be honest with you. So I have to be super careful to not, lead your audience in the wrong direction. AI seems to have been born of using the brain as a model of how do we process information. So we have this sensors, or our ability to bring in a sensory event and make that event go through multiple stages or layers of neuronal processing that ultimately combine with the rest of these sensors and gives us our ability to think. And that approach has been mimicked by using GPUs, like the fabric that seems to be the most appropriate variant of the hardware we own today, like the NVIDIAs of the world and so on. We use these things to mimic how human brains work. And we train it and we set at each of the intersection, we are able to set the coefficients, which is the model ultimately, to ultimately give us an ability to feed that thing with data that fits a certain pattern. And that mimicking of the brain is going to be able to process it and come up with the final result. So if that's still the case, I'm not sure how you put in a quantum computer, you plug in a quantum computer in that bucket of inputs. I know quantum is just another phenomenal capability, and it does so many things in parallel that, there are some tricks and algorithms we found that quantum computers can do that no other computers in the world can achieve. I am just not sure. And it's probably me not being aware of it or not knowledgeable enough. And maybe someone in the audience is going, yeah, I know. But I don't know of a way to use the quantum computing elements, the qubits, the ability to do entanglement, the ability to do superposition. I don't know how they can use that to mimic a thinking process. It's kind of a pattern recognition. Our brain is like a super statistical machine. We feed it throughout our growth and our lives with different patterns, and each of those patterns gets to impregnate different logical path internally that ultimately lead us to be able to advance and talk and walk and think and so on and so forth. And it sounds like that's what we're trying to replicate with GPU. I just don't know if a quantum computer can help there. I really don't.
Yeah.
I should probably read a bit more about that next time before I
Yeah, that's
get on.
I can't wait to do more reading on that as well too. We have a question in our chat, if you don't mind me asking it.
No, sure.
What are the options in Canada to ensure data sovereignty when hosting applications? What
There
they
are
understand,
actually.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
but
Yeah.
no, keep going. Sorry.
What they understand is that it's hard to achieve at the moment, and most public clouds like Google, Microsoft, AWS can promise Canadian data residency, but it's not quite the same thing as data sovereignty. Is that correct?
Um, I have to be careful. You may have some folks. There might be some folks on the podcast that are listening. But I'll give you a few pointers.
Sure.
Last summer, there was a big. It's not a congressional. It was in France. The French government had invited a high-end executive from, I believe, Microsoft, and it asked that person if you were, because you're Microsoft and your headquarters is in the US, but the data center sits here in France.
Yeah.
So this gentleman was sitting in a French, um, basically a big French parliament, I think, and he was being asked if you're compelled by your government, your boss, which is Microsoft headquarters in Redmond, to provide data, French citizens sitting in these data center, would you comply? And the answer was, I would have to, because Microsoft is a US company. And if they need or deem it important and necessary for the government to have access to some data that is owned and controlled by the headquartered company in the US, be it Microsoft, Google, or those other companies, according to that answer, anyone on the planet would have to comply. So that's one part of the answer. It's not me saying it. I'm just repeating what I've heard, and everybody pretty much went, oh, okay. Now, in Canada, there are companies that are built and based and operated and owned by Canadian entities. You have a few data centers now, a few companies that are building that very same capability. I know of two, and I know of a few more, but I just don't recall their names. One is called ThinkOn, the another one is called MicroLogic. I believe there are a few more. So I just know these two, but I know there are more. And if your data is resident inside one of those data center, then there's no ability for from any foreign entity to compel the owners, the operators of these data centers to extract data and send it somewhere else. They are Canadian entities run and controlled under the laws of Canada. So yes, there are. It's becoming it's a global theme. It's not just in Canada. The world at large is going, we need to fix that. More of these data centers and operators are starting to show up. And that's starting. And we've all been awoken to that fact basically a year ago. And we're all trying now to quickly get to fix that sort of flaw in our design, I guess. And in those data centers, the cryptography that you use, we're definitely working to make sure that it is also sovereign and the black box is actually from a trusted party. So that's the best I can the best I can do. The concept of being able to keep the data, hosting the data somewhere else and controlling it is really, sadly, it really is not making your data more sovereign. So that's the answer on that one.
That's really helpful. And we are close to the end of our
Yeah,
session. Bruno, I know we go over time a lot in our conversations, and I think it's really good content and great analogies. One thing
good.
I wanted to let our audience know is that the reason we bring on and talk a lot about technology and some of the challenges that are coming up is not just the technology itself, but also the people side of it and making sure that organizations are solving the right problem. And so, what we do is we have some training available for people to understand things from a people perspective. But we also, that's our level one where people can learn about deeper clarity method and also design thinking and all the things that make up. We also have a level two where we go in and we work with organizations to help them learn as well as apply what we talk about. And so making sure that they're actually articulating the right problem that they need to solve and then being able to align their teams around it so that they're able to solve it. And then the level three is bringing in enterprise level support, including the systems, continuously updating the frameworks and the tools that are being used. And so, if you are interested in finding out more about deeper clarity about some of our service, or if there's actually more technology topics that you want to hear about, or if you have more things that you want to ask Bruno around quantum, always happy to talk with you, Bruno, around that. And so feel free to reach out to us, send us a message, an email. You'll get a quick survey after this webinar as well, too. So any insights and information you provide helps us provide better webinars and better services going forward. You'll have noticed some QR codes along the way that take you to different parts of our website or our offerings, whether it's training you want, facilitation, coaching, speaking engagements, or consulting services. And always there's tons more on our website or through a TED Talk around design thinking as well too. So again, we have some courses coming up, but if you want some deeper help in actually implementing some of this, please feel free to reach out. And again, thank you so much, Bruno, for coming on board and for sharing your expertise with us. I always enjoy the conversations, always enjoy the analogies, and I feel like I have even more questions afterwards. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, welcome and looking forward to the next time then. Thank you.